Welcome back to another Explainer. Today, we're diving into a deeply moving concept all about synchronicity and human connection. I want you to think about your own life for a second. What if your most pivotal, life-changing chapters aren't defined by the geographic places you go to, but rather by the people you meet along the way?
Like the author beautifully writes, some chapters in life are not defined by places, but by people. As we go through these stories today, I really want you to act as your own inner guide. Think about the individuals who challenge you, the ones who inspire you, and the ones who ultimately help you remember who you truly are, especially when you might have forgotten. And this brings us to a really fascinating question, one that this memoir basically insists we ask ourselves. Are the people in your life just random encounters, or are they signposts? Well, the author of this text suggests they are absolutely signposts. We're going to explore 5 specific souls from the source material who entered the author's life at the exact perfect moment to shape their destiny. Together, these 5 individuals form what the author calls their personal ledger. All right, let's dive into the first major connection, the lifelong friend, John Byer. So picture this. It's New York City, around 1977. The author meets John, and they eventually become these super dedicated exercise partners, doing things like running the night beaches of Miami, diving into the ocean, and really just experimenting with life side by side. But the true domino effect of synchronicity here, it actually started with a simple spark. Reading an article in Omni magazine about the Monroe Institute. The author ended up going first, and then John followed a few weeks later. While he was there, John actually became close friends with Robert Monroe himself. But even more importantly for the author's journey, John later introduced them to an entity named Mafu, and that was a connection that would entirely shape their spiritual future. What's wild is that John's own life took this incredible parallel path. He sought out top-tier instruction, specifically training with Emmett Hutchins, who was one of Ida Rolf's closest students. John went on to become a master practitioner of Rolfing, which is a really rigorous form of structural integration bodywork. He became so incredibly skilled at it that literally Olympic diver Greg Lougane's praised him, saying, "John's bodywork is the best gift you can give yourself." That shared pursuit of excellence just totally cemented a 40-year bond of friendship, discovery, and synchronicity between the two of them.
Moving right along to the architects and catalysts of this story, David Schweitzer and Harry Bartz.
Okay, first up is David. David was an incredibly brilliant guy, off-the-charts IQ, who became a highly successful acupuncturist in Miami. But get this, amazingly, he began building these pyramid kicks in New York at the exact same time as the author's future wife, Barbara, without them even knowing each other. Later on, that entity Mafu actually referred to David as Hermes, the mythical architect of the pyramids. Now, while the author doesn't explicitly claim David was literally Hermes reborn, it does prompt this massive, mind-bending philosophical question. Does our DNA actually contain blueprints of who we were in past lives?
Then there's Harry Bartz. Harry's impact on the author's life was a total catalyst. They originally met in Los Angeles in 1976. Later, when Harry was running a tree-cutting business in South Florida, he hired the author, forging this really close bond. They even learned how to windsurf together in Harry's backyard. But the ultimate pivot in their timeline happened when Harry enrolled in a computer science institute to learn BASIC, Fortran, and COBOL. Harry taking that action gave the author the direct impulse to enroll as well, and that sparked what would become an incredible, lifelong career in computer programming for the author.
Harry's quiet, deep, and humble presence really proved that old saying that friendship is God's way of saying, "I love you." Years down the road, a simple phone call from Harry, who was living in Portland at the time, altered everything. He let the author know that Mafu was giving a 3-day retreat in Ashland. So the author went, and this event was absolutely monumental. It culminated in the author receiving a profound initiation jacket from Mafu. Harry was the steadfast bridge to that exact life-altering moment.
Which brings us to connection number 3, the channeler, Paul McLan. So it's 1982 in New York City, and the author meets Paul. Paul was a man who had spent about a year and a half spontaneously leaving his body and hearing voices. At first, Paul honestly thought he was going crazy until he realized the true nature of what was happening. He was actually a channeler, capable of opening spiritual doorways and communicating with guides. Now, the author was pretty skeptical at first, but kept an open mind. During trance sessions, Paul's voice would audibly change genders depending on which specific guide was speaking. And through Paul, the guides provided this incredibly specific prediction. Soon you will meet this entity named Mafu, channeled by a female. At the time, that was an absolutely impossible to know detail. But as we just learned from the stories about John and Harry, that prediction came entirely true.
But the guides didn't just stop at predicting the future. They looked deeply inward.
They told the author, "You are Richard, who has been called the Lion-Hearted. You and I are part of each other." These deep sessions functioned almost like intense spiritual psychoanalysis. The guides taught that the old falling away will feel much like death before any kind of rebirth into the divine kingdom could occur. They helped the authors surrender their will to the Almighty. And ultimately, Paul's channeling taught the author a priceless, breathtaking lesson how to trust their own inner guidance and truly become their own teacher.
Now, stepping out of the purely spiritual realm for a second, let's look at love, lineage, and earthly kindness with Lila Masant.
The author met Lila, who was known as Linda Larini back then, in Buffalo during the brutal, snow-filled winters of the late 70s. Together, they shared this deep love for meditation, cooking, and even preparing massive 15-course Indian feasts together. When they eventually married, her northern Italian grandparents, Nonno and Nonna, warmly welcomed the author right into their kitchen, which is actually quite rare for that era. They made this hearty polenta that they famously cut with actual dental floss. How cool is that? And rich spinach gnocchi served with clarified butter and parmesan. Being welcomed like that proved to the author that a deep, sustaining kindness ran right through their family's lineage.
Now, obviously, real life isn't always a perfect fairy tale. Finances were super tight, and simple luxuries, like a pint of Haagen-Dazs rum raisin ice cream, were considered a massive treat. Yet this era brought immense nostalgic joy. Most notably, the birth of their daughter, Leilani. The author distinctly recalls her unforgettable smile right after her water birth. And incredibly, by the time she was just 2 years old, the author and Leilani were already out boogie boarding together. I mean, come on, a 2-year-old boogie boarding.
But life definitely throws curveballs, and the author and Lila faced an unexpected divorce in 1985. But here's the thing. The author didn't point fingers or place blame. Instead, they took responsibility and focused on moving forward. A psychologist simply told the author, "You will heal yourself." And they absolutely did. They remained friends with Lila, holding on to the realization that her Nonna's kindness lives on eternally. It perfectly mirrors the Dalai Lama's beautiful belief that kindness itself is a religion.
Okay, so let's pull all these amazing vignettes together into our final section, the Web of Souls, your personal ledger.
Summarizing the whole journey, these 5 souls, John, David, Harry, Paul, and Lila, taught the author some profound truths. That friendship is truly sacred, that synchronicity is very real. They showed that guidance comes in many unexpected forms, that kindness is a lineage passed down through generations, and that healing is a shared journey. They demonstrated that love doesn't just end, it simply evolves. And most importantly, they definitively proved that the universe speaks directly to us through the people we meet. They were never random encounters. They were mirrors, companions, and absolutely vital signposts. I want to leave you with this poetic thought from the memoir known as Zoran's Whisper. Traveler, these souls walked beside you because your paths were woven long before birth. Each one carried a lesson, a memory, a spark. Together, they formed the web that guided you home. It's just a breathtaking perspective on human connection, isn't it? So I leave you with this question to carry with you today. Who currently makes up your own ledger of souls, and what life-changing lessons are they waiting to teach you? Thanks for joining me to explore this fascinating text. And as always, keep learning.